Special Agent Camille Rousseau had exactly 90 days to bring down the Bellucci family. 90 days to gather evidence, wear a wire, and send one of New York's most dangerous men to prison for life. What she didn't plan for was Luca Bellucci looking at her like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. The rain hammered against the windows of Vitale's, the upscale Italian restaurant in Tribeca that served as the public face of the Bellucci empire. Camille adjusted the small recording device hidden in her bra strap, took a steadying breath, and pushed through the heavy wooden doors. 3 months of preparation had led to this moment. 3 months of building a false identity, memorizing backstories, learning Italian phrases that would make her seem like a legitimate art dealer from Paris. The FBI had invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into this operation. Camille Rousseau didn't exist before 6 months ago. Tonight she had to make him believe she was real. The hostess, a striking woman in her 60s with silver hair swept into an elegant chignon, looked up from her podium. Her eyes were sharp, assessing. Camille had researched her. Rosa Bellucci, Luca's mother, the matriarch who'd kept the family together after her husband's assassination 12 years ago. Buonasera, Camille said smoothly, her French accent perfectly in place. I have a reservation. Rousseau, 8 o'clock. Rosa's expression softened slightly. Ah, yes, Mademoiselle Rousseau. We've been expecting you. My son suggested our private room. Please follow me. Camille's pulse quickened. Private room? That wasn't in the brief. She'd expected a table in the main dining area, where other agents could maintain visual contact. Her backup team was positioned in a van 3 blocks away, but they'd be blind to whatever happened behind closed doors. She followed Rosa through the restaurant, past tables where well-dressed couples shared bottles of wine and plates of handmade pasta. The aroma of garlic, basil, and slow-cooked tomatoes filled the air. Everything looked legitimate, upscale, normal. But Camille knew better. The FBI had been building a case against the Bellucci family for 6 years. Money laundering, extortion, contract killings. Luca Bellucci's hands weren't clean, even if his restaurant smelled like heaven. Rosa opened a door at the back of the restaurant. The private dining room was intimate, candlelit, with walls painted a deep burgundy. Original Italian artwork hung in gilded frames. A table for 2 sat in the center, already set with crystal wine glasses and fine china. And standing by the window, his back to the door, was Luca Bellucci. Camille had studied his photographs for weeks. Surveillance photos, mostly. Grainy images captured from distance. Nothing had prepared her for the reality of him in person. He turned and the air seemed to shift. Luca Bellucci was 6 feet 2 inches of controlled power wrapped in a charcoal's Tom Ford suit. His dark hair was slightly longer than the FBI photo showed, curling just above his collar. Sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw shadowed with evening stubble, and eyes the color of espresso that seemed to see straight through every lie she'd prepared. Mademoiselle Rousseau, he said, his voice low and rich with a hint of an Italian accent that made her name sound like poetry. Thank you for joining me. He moved toward her with the kind of grace that came from absolute confidence. His eyes traveled over her face, lingering on her lips, then meeting her gaze with an intensity that made her forget, for a dangerous moment, that she was wearing a wire. Camille extended her hand. Monsieur Bellucci, your associate spoke highly of your collection. His hand engulfed hers, warm, strong. He didn't shake it so much as hold it, his thumb brushing across her knuckles in a gesture that felt far too intimate for a business meeting. Please, he said, guiding her to the table, call me Luca. He pulled out her chair himself. As Camille sat, she felt his hand ghost across her shoulder, barely touching the fabric of her black dress. The wire beneath her clothes suddenly felt enormous. Obvious. Surely he could feel it. Surely he knew. But Luca simply moved to a seat across from her, his movements unhurried, completely at ease. Wine? He asked, reaching for the bottle already breathing on the table. This is from my family's vineyard in Tuscany. We don't export it. Very few people outside the family have tasted it. I'd be honored, Camille said. She watched as he poured, his hands steady and sure, hands that had signed death warrants according to her case files, hands that controlled an empire built on violence and fear. And yet, when he handed her the glass, his fingers brushed hers with a gentleness that seemed impossible for a man with his reputation. To new partnerships, Luca said, raising his glass. To art, Camille countered, meeting his toast. The wine was extraordinary, rich and complex, with notes of cherry and leather that lingered on her tongue. She'd expected nothing less. Everything about Luca Bellucci was refined, curated, perfect. Your associate mentioned you were looking to acquire pieces for a private collection, Camille began, sliding easily into her cover story. I represent several artists whose work rarely comes to market. Caravaggio sketches, a small Bernini bronze that's never been publicly displayed. I'm interested in the Caravaggio, Luca said, but that's not why I invited you here tonight. Camille's training kicked in. Stay calm, don't react. Oh? Luca leaned back in his chair, studying her with those dark, penetrating eyes. I wanted to meet the woman who speaks 6 languages, holds degrees from both the Sorbonne and Oxford, and turned down a position at Christie's to work independently. The woman who, according to my research, doesn't exist in any meaningful way before 5 years ago. Camille's blood turned to ice. He knew. Somehow, he knew. But her face remained perfectly composed, a slight smile playing at her lips. I value my privacy, Monsieur Bellucci. Surely you of all people understand the appeal of staying out of the public eye? Luca, he corrected softly. And yes, I understand perfectly. Which is why I find you fascinating. In my world, secrets are currency. And you, Camille Rousseau, are very expensive. The way he said her name, the false name, made her skin prickle with awareness. He was testing her, pushing to see if she'd break. I prefer to think of myself as exclusive, Camille said, taking another sip of wine. The truly valuable things in life are rarely accessible to everyone. A slow smile spread across Luca's face. I agree completely. Rosa entered then, followed by 2 servers bearing plates. The food was exquisite. Burrata with heirloom tomatoes and basil, fresh pasta with white truffles. Branzino prepared tableside. Each course was a masterpiece, and through it all, Luca watched her. He asked about Paris, about her time at the Sorbonne, about her favorite artists. Questions that seemed casual, but were designed to trip her up, to catch her in a lie. Camille answered each one smoothly, grateful for the months of preparation, the countless hours memorizing details of a life she'd never lived. But it wasn't just interrogation. Luca spoke about art with genuine passion. He'd grown up surrounded by his family's collection. His father, before his death, had taught him to see beauty as a form of power. To collect rare things was to control them, preserve them. But beauty should be free, Camille argued, surprising herself with her own honesty. Art locked away in private collections serves no one but the ego of the owner. Luca's eyes flashed with something that might have been respect. Spoken like someone who's never had to protect what she loves. In my experience, the things we cherish most are always under threat. Sometimes the only way to keep them safe is to keep them close. There was something in his voice, a weight that suggested he wasn't just talking about paintings anymore. Is that what you do? Camille asked quietly. Keep things safe? I protect what's mine, Luca said. At any cost. The words should have sounded threatening. Instead, they sounded like a promise. Camille reached for her wine glass, needing something to do with her hands. This was getting too personal, too real. She was supposed to be gathering evidence, not debating philosophy with a man who looked at her like she was the most valuable thing in the room. Tell me about the Caravaggio, Lucas said, changing the subject. The one you mentioned? Is it from his Malta period? They talked business for the next hour. Camille described the piece in detail, a sketch that supposedly depicted the beheading of John the Baptist, one of Caravaggio's recurring subjects. It was all fabricated, of course. The FBI had created an entire provenance, complete with forged documentation. The goal was to get Luca to make an offer to transfer money that could be traced back to his illegal enterprises. I'd need to see it in person, Luca said. Can you arrange that? Of course. Though I should warn you, the seller is asking $7.5 million. It's a serious investment. I make serious investments regularly, Luca said. When I see something I want, price is rarely an obstacle. The way he said it, looking directly at her, made it clear they weren't just talking about art anymore. Camille's phone buzzed in her purse, a text from her handler. Get out now. Compromised. Her heart stopped. Excuse me, she said, reaching for her purse. I should check this. Luca's hand shot out, grasping her wrist gently but firmly. Don't. I'm sorry? Your phone. Don't answer it. His eyes held hers, and there was something in them now. Not anger, something darker. Knowledge. You know who texted you? He said softly. You know what they're telling you to do, and we both know you're not going to do it. Camille's training screamed at her to run, to make an excuse, leave the restaurant, meet her extraction team. But Luca's hand on her wrist was warm, and his eyes were asking her a question she didn't know how to answer. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said. "Yes, you do." Luca released her wrist but didn't look away. "Camille Rousseau doesn't exist. I know that. What I don't know yet is who you really are. And if I told you I'm exactly who I claim to be, then I'd say you're a very talented liar." He paused, "but I'd also say I don't care." That shocked her into silence. Luca stood, moving around the table. He held out his hand. "Dance with me." "There's no music." As if on cue, soft jazz began playing through hidden speakers. Of course. He'd planned this. All of it. Camille knew she should refuse, should leave, should remember that this man was a criminal, a target, someone she was supposed to destroy. But she placed her hand in his. Luca pulled her close, one hand settling on the small of her back, the other cradling her hand against his chest. They moved together in the candlelit room, swaying to music that seemed to exist only for them. "I'm going to tell you something," Luca said, his voice low near her ear, "and I want you to really hear me." Camille's heart hammered against her ribs. "I know you're not who you say you are. I've known since the moment you walked through that door, the way you assessed the room, the slight tension in your shoulders, the way your eyes cataloged every exit, every potential threat. You're not an art dealer, Camille. You're something much more dangerous." She should pull away, should deny it. But his arms felt too solid, too safe, and she was so tired of lying. "What am I then?" she whispered. "Someone who's been alone for a very long time," Luca said. "Someone who's forgotten what it feels like to be seen. Someone who's standing in a room with a man who terrifies her, not because she thinks he'll hurt her, but because she's starting to wish he wouldn't let her go." Camille looked up at him, at this man who was supposed to be her enemy, and saw her own conflict reflected in his eyes. "This is insane," she said. "Yes. You're a criminal. I know what you are," Luca interrupted gently. "The question is, do you know who I am? Really know, beyond what someone told you to believe? I've read your file. Files are written by people who've never met me, people who see what they want to see. You're looking at me right now, Camille. What do you see?" She saw a man who'd grown up in violence but collected art, who'd inherited an empire of darkness but filled his restaurant with light and good food and his mother's warmth, who looked at her like she was precious, even knowing she'd come to destroy him. "I see someone who makes it very hard to do my job," she admitted. Luca's hand tightened on her back. "Then maybe it's the wrong job. Or maybe you're the wrong man." "Maybe," he agreed. "But you're still here, still dancing with me, still letting me hold you, even though you know your people are probably losing their minds right now, wondering why you haven't extracted." He was right. She should have left 10 minutes ago, should have signaled distress, should have done anything except stand in his arms, swaying to jazz music, feeling more alive than she'd felt in years of pretending to be people she wasn't. "What do you want from me?" Camille asked. "The truth," Luca said. "Just once. Tell me the truth." "The truth is, I came here to betray you." "I know." "The truth is, I'm wearing a wire right now, and this entire conversation is being recorded." "I know that too. I had this room swept and sealed before you arrived. Whatever you think they're hearing, they're not." Camille's breath caught. He'd known. All along he'd known, and he still invited her here, still treated her like she was someone worth impressing. "Why?" she asked. "Why let me come if you knew?" "Because I had to meet you," Luca said simply. "From the moment my people flagged your inquiry about the Caravaggio, something told me you were different. I had to see for myself if I was right. And I was right." His hand came up, cupping her face with a gentleness that broke something inside her. "You're the most real thing I've encountered in years. Even your lies have more truth in them than most people's honesty." "Luca, I'm not asking you to compromise your principles," he said. "I'm not asking you to betray your mission or your people. I'm just asking you to consider the possibility that everything you've been told about me might not be the whole story. I've seen the evidence, the money trails, the connections to murders, extortion. You've seen what someone wanted you to see. Yes, my family has done terrible things. Yes, I've made choices I'm not proud of, but I've also protected dozens of people. I've kept neighborhoods safe that the police abandoned. I've provided for families that the system failed. It's not black and white, Camille. It's never that simple." She wanted to argue. wanted to hold on to the clear lines of right and wrong that had guided her entire career. But standing here, looking into his eyes, she couldn't find those lines anymore. "This is crazy," she said again. "Yes," Luca agreed. "But crazy doesn't mean wrong." He kissed her then, and the world tilted on its axis. His lips were soft and warm and tasted like the wine they'd shared. His hand cradled the back of her head, fingers threading through her hair, while his other arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her close. Camille melted into him, her body betraying everything her mind knew to be true. She was kissing a mobster, a target, a man she was supposed to help send to prison. And it felt like coming home. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Luca rested his forehead against hers. "I'm not asking you to decide tonight," he said. "I'm not asking you to choose between me and your duty. I'm just asking you to keep coming back, keep investigating me if that's what you need to do. But let me show you who I really am. Let me prove that the man you're looking at right now is more real than anything in those files." "They'll replace me," Camille said. "If I don't deliver results, if they think I'm compromised, they'll pull me out and send someone else. Then deliver results. Give them something. Just not everything. Not yet. Buy yourself time." "Why would I do that?" Luca kissed her again, slower this time, deeper. When he pulled back, his eyes were dark with desire and something that looked dangerously close to hope. "Because you feel it too," he said. "This thing between us. It's not just chemistry, Camille, it's recognition. You see me and I see you, and that's worth protecting. Worth fighting for." Camille's phone buzzed again, insistent. "You need to go," Luca said, releasing her, "before they send someone to check on you." "What happens now?" "Now you go back to your people. You tell them whatever you need to tell them to keep yourself on this case. And tomorrow you come back. We'll talk about the Caravaggio. We'll have dinner, we'll dance, and we'll figure out what this is, one day at a time. You're asking me to lie to everyone I work with, to betray everything I believe in." "No," Luca said gently. "I'm asking you to be honest with yourself about what you want. The rest will follow." Camille looked at him for a long moment. This beautiful, dangerous man who'd seen through every one of her lies and still looked at her like she was worth the risk. "One day at a time," she said finally. Luca smiled, and it transformed his face. "One day at a time." He walked her to the door of the private room. Before she left, he caught her hand one more time. "Camille?" "Yes?" "Whatever name you're really going by, whoever you really are under all the covers and false identities, that's the woman I want to know. Not Camille Rousseau. You." She squeezed his hand once, then left before she could change her mind. The main dining room felt too bright, too loud, after the intimacy of the private room. Rosa gave her a knowing smile as she passed. Outside, the rain had stopped. Camille walked 3 blocks before her extraction team pulled up beside her. "Get in," Agent Marcus Chen snapped, throwing open the door. "What the hell happened in there? Your wire went dead. We've been trying to reach you for 40 minutes. "Technical malfunction," Camille said smoothly, sliding into the van. Something in the building interfered with the signal. "Did you get anything? Any admission of illegal activity? Anything we can use?" He's cautious, doesn't discuss business specifics until he's sure he can trust someone. But I've got a second meeting scheduled for tomorrow. He's interested in the Caravaggio. If we play this right, we can get him to transfer the funds. Chen studied her face. "You look different." "I've been in deep cover for 3 hours. I'm exhausted." "No, it's something else." His eyes narrowed. "Camille, are you compromised?" "No," she said firmly. "I'm doing my job. Let me do it." But as the van pulled away from Tribeca, Camille looked back at Vitale's, where warm light still glowed in the windows, and wondered if she'd just told the biggest lie of her career. The next 6 weeks were the most intense of Camille's life. By day, she was Special Agent Camille Hayes, reporting to her FBI handlers, filing paperwork, maintaining her cover. She gave them enough to keep them satisfied. Details about Luca's associates, information about shipments and meetings, small pieces that felt important but never quite crossed the line into actionable evidence. By night, she was Camille Rousseau, the art dealer who'd somehow become Luca Bellucci's constant companion. The second meeting happened exactly as promised. Taylor arrived at Vitale's the following evening, her heart pounding beneath her ribs. She'd spent the entire day being debriefed by Chen and the team, crafting a story that explained the dead wire and her continued access to the target. "He's paranoid," she told them, "has the private rooms swept for surveillance, But that paranoia also means he's careful. If I push too hard, he'll shut down completely. I need to build trust slowly. Chen hadn't been happy, but he'd agreed to give her more time. 2 more weeks. Then they'd reassess. Now, walking back through those heavy wooden doors, Taylor felt like she was stepping into an alternate universe. One where she wasn't an agent, where Luca wasn't a target, where the connection between them was just what it felt like, real and dangerous and intoxicating. Rosa greeted her with a smile that seemed to hold 1,000 secrets. Mademoiselle Rousseau, welcome back. Luca is waiting for you upstairs. Upstairs? His private office, 3rd floor. The elevator is to your right. Taylor's training told her this was a red flag. Being taken to a secondary location, away from public view, increased her vulnerability. But her instincts, or maybe something deeper, told her she was safe. The elevator was old-fashioned, all brass and mirrors. As it climbed, Taylor caught sight of her reflection. She looked different than she had just 24 hours ago. Her eyes held something new. Uncertainty, maybe. Or possibility. The elevator opened directly into a space that took her breath away. Luca's office was nothing like she'd expected. Instead of the typical dark wood and leather of a mob boss's lair, it was filled with light. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. The walls were gallery white, hung with paintings that made Taylor's art dealer cover story feel suddenly inadequate. "Do you know who that is?" Luca asked, stepping out from behind a massive oak desk. He was dressed more casually tonight. Dark jeans, a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms that were unexpectedly muscular, marked with a tattoo she couldn't quite make out from this distance. Taylor moved closer to the painting he'd indicated. It was abstract, bold strokes of crimson and gold that seemed to pulse with energy. "Basquiat," she said. "Early work, before he became famous. My father bought it from a gallery in the village in 1983, paid $5,000. Today it's worth somewhere around $8 million. But he didn't buy it as an investment. He bought it because it reminded him of my mother, all that fire and passion barely contained." Taylor looked at the painting with new eyes, saw the rage and the beauty intertwined, saw what Luca's father must have seen. "You miss him," she said, "and every day." Luca moved to stand beside her close enough that she could feel his warmth. He was complicated, made terrible choices sometimes, but he loved fiercely, completely. He taught me that the things worth having are worth protecting no matter the cost. Even if protecting them means becoming something you never wanted to be. Luca turned to look at her, and Taylor saw the weight he carried reflected in his eyes. Especially then. They stood there for a long moment looking at the painting, standing so close their hands almost touched. "Why did you really ask me to come back?" Taylor asked quietly. "Because I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. Because last night, for the first time in years, I told someone the truth about who I am, and they didn't run. Because when I look at you, I see something I thought I lost a long time ago." "What's that?" "Hope." The word hung between them, fragile and fierce. Luca reached for her hand, his fingers threading through hers. "I know this is impossible. I know all the reasons it can't work. You have your mission. I have my life. We're on opposite sides of every line that matters. But Taylor, and yes, I'm using your real name because I can't keep calling you by a lie. I need you to know that what I feel for you is the most real thing I've experienced in a decade." Taylor's heart hammered. He'd called her Taylor, her real name. How much did he actually know? "I had you investigated," Luca continued, answering her unspoken question. "The moment you expressed interest in the Caravaggio. Standard procedure for anyone who gets too close to my world. My people are very thorough. They found Camille Rousseau, art dealer, Sorbonne education, impeccable credentials, and they also found the holes, the gaps in your history, the places where the story doesn't quite add up. And you invited me anyway." "I invited you because of the holes, because someone who goes to that much trouble to hide who they really are is either running from something or running toward it, and I wanted to know which." "What if I'm running from you?" Taylor challenged. "Then you're running in the wrong direction because you keep coming back." He was right. She did keep coming back. Luca raised her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles that sent electricity racing up her arm. "Have dinner with me. Not as Luca Bellucci and the FBI agent sent to destroy him. Not as the mob boss and the art dealer. Just as two people who met by accident and discovered something worth exploring." "That's not who we are," Taylor protested. We can't just pretend. For one night we can. His thumb traced circles on her palm, a touch so gentle it made her ache. For one night, let's just be Luca and Taylor. Two people having dinner, getting to know each other, seeing where it goes without all the weight of everything else. It was a terrible idea, reckless and dangerous and completely against protocol. Okay, Taylor heard herself say. One night. Luca's smile transformed his face. He led her to a table set for two near the windows, where the city lights sparkled like fallen stars. The food appeared as if by magic. Rosa, Taylor suspected, working her maternal magic from 3 floors below, and they talked. Not about art or business or the elaborate dance they'd been doing around each other. They talked about real things, about growing up, about loss and love and the moments that shape who we become. Luca told her about his sister, Maria, the doctor who'd moved to California to escape the family legacy, about how proud he was of her, even as he envied her freedom. About Sunday dinners with his mother, where they pretended the restaurant was just a restaurant, and their last name didn't carry the weight it did. Taylor told him about her best friend from the police academy, Sarah, who died in a training accident. About how that loss had driven her to push harder, to never let another person down if she could help it. About the foster home where she'd lived from 16 to 18, with a woman named Mrs. Patterson, who taught her that family wasn't always about blood. She used to say that the best things in life are the ones you choose, Taylor said, her fingers tracing the stem of her wine glass, that the family you build is stronger than the family you're born into, because it's based on love instead of obligation. Smart woman, Luca said. She was. She died 5 years ago. Cancer. I was undercover on another case and couldn't even go to the funeral. Couldn't risk my cover. Sometimes I wonder if she understood. If she knew why I didn't come. Luca reached across the table, covering her hand with his. She knew. The people who really love us always know. The touch lasted longer than it should have. His hand was warm and strong, and when he finally pulled away, Taylor felt the loss like a physical thing. They moved from the table to the windows, looking out over the city that neither of them could imagine leaving. Luca pointed out landmarks. The building where his father had proposed to his mother. The park where he'd had his first fight, defending a kid from his neighborhood who was being bullied. The bridge where he sometimes went when he needed to think, to remember why he did what he did. It's not all bad, you know, Luca said. What I do. The way people talk about it, you'd think we're monsters. But we protect our own. When the cops won't come to certain neighborhoods, we make sure people can walk safely. When the banks won't give loans to immigrant families trying to start businesses, we provide capital. It's not legal, but it's necessary. Necessary doesn't make it right, Taylor said gently. No, Luca agreed, but it makes it understandable. Gray instead of black and white. And I've learned that most of life exists in the gray areas. Taylor thought about her own work. The time she'd bent rules to close cases, the moral compromises she'd made in the name of justice. Maybe she and Luca weren't as different as she wanted to believe. Dance with me again, Luca said. There's still no music. This time he pulled out his phone, selected a song. Soft Italian jazz filled the room, a woman's voice singing about love and loss in words Taylor only half understood, but she didn't need to understand the words to feel the emotion. Luca pulled her close, and they swayed together in the warm light of his office, surrounded by art and secrets and the fragile beginning of something neither of them knew how to name. What are we doing? Taylor whispered against his shoulder. Something stupid, Luca admitted. Something reckless. Something that's probably going to hurt us both. We should stop. Yes, we should. But neither of them moved to pull away. The song ended. Another began. They kept dancing, kept holding each other, kept pretending that the world outside these windows didn't exist, that there were no investigations or loyalties or impossible barriers between them. Stay, Luca said. Not for anything else. Just stay. Talk to me. Let me know you better. So she stayed. They talked until 2 a.m, until Taylor's phone buzzed with increasingly urgent messages from her handlers. Until the city outside had gone quiet and the only light came from the paintings on the walls and the stars above them. I should go, Taylor said, not moving. You should, Luca agreed, not releasing her. They're going to know something's wrong. I've been dark for hours. Tell them the truth. That you're building trust. Getting closer. Isn't that what deep cover is supposed to be? It's not supposed to feel like this. Like what? Like I'm the one being investigated. Like you're peeling back every layer I've built, seeing things I've spent years hiding. Luca's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing across her cheekbone. Good. Because I want to see all of you, Taylor Hayes. Not the agent. Not the cover identity. You. The woman who's brave enough to walk into danger but still remembers to be kind. Who fights for justice but understands the world isn't simple. Who looks at me like I'm more than just a case file. You are more than a case file, Taylor admitted. That's the problem. Or maybe that's the solution. He kissed her then, and Taylor let herself fall. Let herself forget every rule she'd ever learned about maintaining professional distance. Let herself just feel, his lips on hers, his hands gentle on her face, the solid warmth of him against her. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Luca rested his forehead against hers. Come back tomorrow, he said, and the day after that, and the day after that. Keep investigating me if you have to, but keep coming back. This is going to end badly, Taylor said. Maybe, Luca agreed, but maybe it's worth it anyway. The third meeting happened at a gallery opening in Chelsea. Luca had invited her, told her there would be people there she should meet. Art collectors, he'd said. Potential clients for her cover business. Taylor knew better. These were his associates, his family. He was introducing her to his world, testing to see how she'd handle it. She wore a deep blue dress that Rosa had somehow arranged to be delivered to her apartment. It fit perfectly, elegant and understated, appropriate for the occasion without being ostentatious. The note that came with it was simple. For Taylor, welcome to the family. Rosa, welcome to the family, made Taylor's stomach twist with guilt and longing in equal measure. The gallery was in a converted warehouse, all exposed brick and industrial lighting. The art on display was contemporary, challenging, the kind of work that made people uncomfortable and start conversations. Exactly the kind of venue Luca would choose. He met her at the entrance looking devastating in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Taylor's monthly salary. His eyes lit up when he saw her, and for a moment all the pretense fell away. You look beautiful, he said simply, offering his arm. Rosa has good taste, Taylor replied, linking her arm through his. Rosa has excellent taste. She also has opinions about you that she's shared with me extensively. Should I be worried? Only if you're afraid of being adopted by an Italian mother who thinks you're the best thing that's ever happened to her stubborn son. They moved through the gallery together, and Taylor felt dozens of eyes tracking their movement. Some curious, some calculating, some openly hostile. They're wondering who you are, Luca said quietly. Why I brought you, what you mean to me. What do I mean to you? Everything, he said so simply it made her heart ache. But we'll start with friend and let them draw their own conclusions. He introduced her to seemingly endless people. Art collectors who spoke in seven figures and didn't blink. Business owners whose restaurants and shops dotted the city. A politician whose face Taylor recognized from campaign posters. And underneath all the legitimate faces, she recognized others from her case files. Associates, soldiers. The infrastructure of Luca's empire wrapped in suits and smiles. Agent Hayes, a voice said behind her, fancy seeing you here. Taylor turned to find herself face to face with Anthony Greco, a man she'd personally helped arrest 2 years ago on fraud charges. He'd served 18 months and was apparently back in circulation. I'm sorry, she said smoothly, her French accent in place. I think you have me confused with someone else. I'm Camille Rousseau. Greco's smile was sharp as a knife. My mistake. Though you do look remarkably like an FBI agent I once knew. Same eyes, same way of standing like you're ready for a fight. Luca appeared at her elbow, his hand settling possessively on her lower back. Tony, I see you've met Camille. She's helping me expand my art collection. Is that what we're calling it now? Greco's eyes bounced between them, knowing and amused. Your art collection. Got it. Tony specializes in restoration work, Luca said, his voice carrying a warning. He's very good at fixing broken things, making them look like new, though sometimes the cracks still show, no matter how much effort you put in. The message was clear. Greco smiled, nodded, and moved away. He knows, Taylor said quietly. He suspects. There's a difference. And even if he knows, he won't say anything. Tony owes me. I made sure he had work when he got out. Made sure his family was taken care of while he was inside. He's loyal. Or he's biding his time, waiting for the right moment to use that information against you. Always thinking like a cop, Luca said, but there was affection in his voice. Come on, there's someone I actually want you to meet. He led her to a woman standing alone in front of a particularly aggressive abstract painting. She was in her late 30s, dressed in a simple black dress, with natural, hair worn in intricate braids that must have taken hours to create. Dr. Bellucci, Luca said warmly, I didn't know you were in town. The woman turned and Taylor saw Luca's features reflected in her face. His sister. Luca. Maria Bellucci hugged her brother tightly. Mama didn't tell you I was coming? That woman and her surprises. She mentioned you might visit. She didn't mention it would be tonight. Luca turned to Taylor. Maria, this is Camille Rousseau. Camille, my sister, Dr. Maria Bellucci. She's a surgeon at Stanford. Maria's eyes assessed Taylor with the same sharp intelligence her brother possessed, but there was warmth there too, curiosity without judgment. The art dealer, Maria said. Mama's been talking about you nonstop. She thinks you're going to save Luca from himself. I'm just helping him acquire some pieces, Taylor said. Is that what Mama thinks? Because she sent me a text last week saying Luca had finally found someone worthy of him. I had to fly across the country to see this miracle for myself. Maria, Luca warned. What? I'm making conversation. Getting to know the woman who's captured my brother's attention? That's allowed, isn't it? The three of them stood there, an awkward triangle of tension and interest in family dynamics Taylor couldn't fully navigate. I'm going to get us some champagne, Luca said. Try not to scare her off while I'm gone. As soon as he left, Maria turned to Taylor with a directness that was startling. You're FBI, she said flatly. Taylor's blood turned to ice. Excuse me? Don't bother denying it. I work in trauma surgery. I know how law enforcement stands, how they assess rooms, how they position themselves near exits. You've been scanning this gallery since you walked in, cataloging faces, looking for threats. You're either a cop or military, and given the way you're looking at my brother, I'm betting cop. Taylor's training warred with her instincts. Deny, deflect, maintain cover. But looking into Maria's eyes, she saw the same thing she'd seen in Luca's. The same exhaustion with lies. The same hunger for something real. Does he know? Maria asked. Yes. And he brought you here anyway. Introduced you to his world. To me. Maria was quiet for a moment. He must really love you. We barely know each other. My brother doesn't let people in. Agent, what's your real name? Taylor Hayes. My brother doesn't let people in, Taylor. Our father's death taught him that trust is a weakness. Love is a liability. The only safe way to live is behind walls. If he's letting you see past those walls, it means something. It means he's making a mistake, Taylor said. I'm here to investigate him, to build a case, possibly to send him to prison. And yet you're still here, still coming to gallery openings, still looking at him like he's more than just an assignment. Maria studied her. What are you really after, Taylor? Justice or something else? I don't know anymore, Taylor admitted. The honesty felt dangerous, liberating. Well, while you're figuring it out, let me give you some advice. My brother is not our father. He didn't choose this life. He inherited it. And every day he tries to be better than what he was raised to be. If you're going to judge him for who he is now, not for what his last name means. Luca returned then, carrying 3 glasses of champagne. He looked between his sister and Taylor, reading the tension in the air. What did I miss? Just girl talk, Maria said, taking her glass. I like her, Luca. She's smart, strong. She doesn't look at you like you're made of money or danger. She looks at you like you're human. That's rare. She is rare, Luca agreed, his eyes never leaving Taylor's face. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of introductions and art and stolen glances across the gallery. Taylor collected information automatically, cataloging names and faces and connections, but part of her mind stayed fixed on Maria's words. He didn't choose this life. He inherited it. How much of what Luca did was choice, and how much was simply survival in a world that had been chosen for him before he was born? When the gallery started to empty, Luca pulled her aside. Come somewhere with me, he said. Where? You'll see. Trust me. That word again. Trust? The thing she was supposed to never give a target. The thing she found herself giving Luca more of every day. They left the gallery, and Luca's driver took them not to Vitale's or his penthouse, but to Brooklyn, to a neighborhood that looked like it had been forgotten by the city's gentrification boom. Crumbling brownstones, streets that needed repaving, a corner store with bars on the windows. "This is where I grew up," Luca said, as they walked down the sidewalk. "Before the money, before Vitale's, when my father was still building the business and we lived in a 2-bedroom apartment above a laundromat." He pointed to a building halfway down the block. "That's where Maria fell and broke her arm when she was 6. I was supposed to be watching her, but I was playing stickball in the street. I've never forgotten the sound of her crying, or the look on my father's face when he came home and found out I'd failed to protect her." They kept walking. Luca showed her the church where his grandmother had dragged him every Sunday, the basketball court where he'd learned to fight because the older boys didn't think a skinny Italian kid belonged on their court, the steps of a brownstone where he'd had his first kiss with a girl named Angela, who'd moved away the summer before high school. "Why are you showing me this?" Taylor asked. "Because I want you to understand where I come from, who I was before I became who I am. I want you to see that I'm not just the man in the suit running an empire. I'm also the kid who played in these streets, who knew every family on this block, who watched his neighbors struggle and decided to do something about it, even if the methods weren't exactly legal." He led her to a community center that looked new, well-maintained, completely out of place in this neighborhood. "I built this," Luca said, 3 years ago. It offers after-school programs, tutoring, job training, drug rehabilitation services. It's completely free, run by volunteers from the neighborhood and funded by your illegal enterprises," Taylor finished. "By me," Luca corrected. "The money might come from sources you don't approve of, but the result is kids who have somewhere safe to go after school, families who have access to resources, people who might otherwise fall through the cracks finding a way to climb out." "You could do this legitimately," Taylor argued. "You're smart, connected, clearly good at business. You could make money legally and still fund programs like this." "You think I haven't tried?" Luca's voice carried an edge of frustration. "I've started legitimate businesses, restaurants, import companies, real estate development. But in neighborhoods like this, the banks won't lend. The politicians won't invest. The only way to get capital is through channels that the law doesn't recognize. So yes, I use money from illegal sources to do legal good. And I sleep just fine at night because I see the results every day." Taylor looked at the community center, at the lights glowing warmly in the windows, at the kids visible through the glass working on homework and playing basketball in the gym. "This doesn't absolve you of the other things," she said quietly. "The violence, the extortion, the money laundering." "I know," Luca said. "I'm not asking for absolution. I'm asking for understanding. For you to see that the world isn't as black and white as the FBI wants you to believe. That sometimes good people do bad things for good reasons. And sometimes bad people do good things to justify their bad actions." Luca smiled without humor. "Also true. The question is, which one am I?" Taylor looked at him standing there in his expensive suit in the neighborhood where he'd grown up poor. Saw the community center he'd built and the empire he maintained. Saw all the contradictions and complications that made up the man who'd somehow become central to her world. "I think you're both," she said finally. "And that's what makes this so impossible." "Or possible," Luca countered. "If you can see both sides, maybe you can understand why I do what I do. Maybe you can help me figure out how to keep the good parts while letting go of the bad." "That's not my job." "No, your job is to arrest me. But I'm not asking the FBI agent. I'm asking Taylor, the woman who grew up in foster care and knows what it's like to need help that doesn't come. The woman who sees these kids and knows she was once one of them. What does she think?" Taylor didn't have an answer. Or maybe she had too many answers, all of them contradictory. They walked back to the car in silence. The drive to Manhattan felt longer than it should have, weighted with all the things they weren't saying. "I'm going to keep investigating you," Taylor said as they pulled up to her apartment building. "I know. I'm going to report what I find to my superiors. I expect nothing less. And eventually this is going to come down to a choice between my duty and whatever this is." Luca reached for her hand, threading his fingers through hers. "I know that too. But until that moment comes, can we just be? Can we have dinner and talk about art and dance in my office? Can we pretend for a little while that we're just two people who found each other against all odds?" Taylor knew she should say no. knew every additional moment she spent with Luca was a step further from the woman she'd been when this assignment started. But she was tired of the pretending, tired of the walls, tired of choosing duty over everything else. Yes, she whispered, until that moment comes. Luca kissed her goodnight on the sidewalk outside her building, gentle and lingering and full of all the promises they couldn't make. And Taylor went upstairs to her apartment where she filed a report that was carefully accurate but incomplete, giving her handlers just enough to keep them satisfied while holding back the parts that mattered most. She was crossing a line. She knew it, but she couldn't seem to stop herself. Over the following weeks, Taylor and Luca settled into a rhythm that felt dangerously like normal. She'd spend her days at FBI headquarters, reviewing evidence and attending briefings. Her evenings belonged to him. They had dinner at small restaurants all over the city. Luca knew every owner, every chef, and they were treated like royalty wherever they went. But they also had quiet nights at his penthouse, cooking together, talking for hours about everything and nothing. He took her to the opera. She took him to a jazz club in Harlem she'd discovered years ago. They visited museums and argued about art, about whether beauty required suffering, about the responsibility of wealth. And through it all, Taylor gathered information. Not because she was trying to build a case anymore, somewhere along the way, that had stopped being her primary motivation, but because she wanted to understand, wanted to see the full picture of who Luca was and what he'd built. What she found was more complex than she'd expected. Yes, Luca's organization ran illegal gambling operations and protection rackets. Yes, they laundered money through legitimate businesses. Yes, there was violence when necessary. But there was also the restaurant worker whose medical bills Luca had paid when she developed cancer. The family whose home he'd bought when they were facing eviction, letting them stay rent-free. The teenager he'd sent to college on a full scholarship after the kid's father died in a construction accident. Luca's empire was built on loyalty, not fear. On mutual protection, not exploitation. It wasn't legal, but in many ways it filled the gaps that legal systems left behind. "You're thinking too hard," Luca said one night as they lay together on the couch in his penthouse, her head on his chest, his fingers playing with her hair. "I'm always thinking," Taylor replied. "I know. It's one of the things I love about you. But sometimes I wish you could just feel instead of analyze." "What would I feel?" "That this is right. That we're right. That whatever else is true, this thing between us is worth protecting." Taylor shifted to look up at him. "They're getting impatient. Chen, my superiors. They want results. They want arrests. They want me to push you into something they can use." "Then push me." "What?" Lucas sat up, gently moving her so they were face to face. "I'm serious. I've been thinking about this. About what Maria said at the gallery. About what you said in Brooklyn. You're right. I could go legitimate. It would take time and there would be consequences, but I could do it. Luca, hear me out. What if we work together? You help me figure out how to extricate myself from the illegal parts of the business. I cooperate with your investigation, give you enough to satisfy your bosses without destroying everything I've built. We could build something real, something legal, something that doesn't end with me in handcuffs." Taylor's heart raced. "You're talking about becoming an informant. I'm talking about becoming a better man, one worthy of you, one who doesn't make you choose between your duty and your heart." They would never accept partial cooperation. It would have to be all or nothing. You'd have to testify against your associates, people who trust you, your family. Not family, never family, but others. Yes, the ones who deal drugs, who traffic humans, who use violence for profit instead of protection. I could give them those people, clean house while cleaning up. It was an impossible dream, a fantasy that could never work in the real world. Except Taylor found herself wanting to believe in it anyway. "Let me think about it," she said. "Let me see if it's even possible before you make promises you might not be able to keep." "Take all the time you need," Lucas said, pulling her close again. "I'm not going anywhere." But 2 days later, everything changed. Taylor was at FBI headquarters when Chen called her into his office. His face was grim. "We have a problem," he said. "What kind of problem?" "The kind where your cover might be blown. We picked up chatter from one of Bellucci's associates. Someone's been asking questions about you, digging into your background. They know Camille Rousseau doesn't add up." Taylor's stomach dropped. "Who?" "We don't know yet. But Hayes, If they figure out you're FBI, you're in danger. These people don't mess around. We need to extract you. Now. No, that wasn't a request. Chen, listen to me. I'm close. Bellucci is considering cooperating, going legitimate. If we pull me out now, we lose everything. Or you lose your life. I'm not willing to take that risk. It's my risk to take. Chen studied her for a long moment. You're sleeping with him, aren't you? That's why you won't extract. Jesus, Hayes. I warned you about this. My personal life is irrelevant. What matters is that we're on the verge of the biggest break this case has ever had. Bellucci wants out. He wants to cooperate. But if you pull me now, he'll shut down completely. You'll get nothing. Better nothing than a dead agent. Give me 1 week, Taylor pleaded. 1 week to see if he's serious, to see if we can make this work. If not, I'll extract voluntarily. But please, Chen, trust me on this. He didn't want to agree. She could see it in his face. But finally he nodded. 1 week. But you wear a panic button at all times. You check in twice daily. And at the first sign of trouble, you get out. Understood? Understood. Taylor left the FBI building and went straight to Vitale's. She needed to warn Luca, needed to figure out who was digging into her background and why, but when she arrived, she found the restaurant closed. Unusual for a Friday evening. The doors were locked, the lights dim. Her training kicked in. Something was wrong. Taylor pulled out her phone to call Luca, but before she could dial, a car pulled up beside her. The back window rolled down, revealing Rosa. Get in, the older woman said urgently. Quickly. What's going on? Just get in, please. Taylor hesitated for only a second before climbing into the car. Rosa was alone in the back seat, but the driver was one of Luca's men. They pulled away from the curb immediately. Where's Luca? Taylor asked. Safe, for now, but we have a problem. Rosa's hands were shaking. Vincent, Luca's cousin. He's been the one asking questions about you. He knows you're not who you say you are, and he's planning to use that information to force Luca out and take over the family business. Where is Luca now? Dealing with Vincent, but Taylor... Rosa used her real name, and Taylor realized Luca must have told his mother everything. Vincent has allies, people who are loyal to him, not to Luca. This could turn into a war, and if that happens, you'll be caught in the middle. The car pulled up to a building Taylor didn't recognize, a warehouse district on the waterfront, exactly the kind of place where bad things happened. I have to go to him, Taylor said. He told me you'd say that. He also told me to tell you to stay away, to go back to your people, to let him handle this. That's not happening. Rosa smiled sadly. I told him you'd say that too. Come on. But stay behind me. And if things go bad, you run. Promise me. Taylor couldn't promise that, but she nodded anyway. Inside the warehouse, the scene was tense. Luca stood in the center of an open space surrounded by perhaps a dozen men. Facing him was Vincent Caruso, a man Taylor recognized from the surveillance photos. He was older than Luca by about 15 years, with gray at his temples and the hard eyes of someone who'd seen too much violence. You brought her, Vincent said, spotting Taylor. Perfect. Now we can all discuss this together. This has nothing to do with her, Luca said coldly. Doesn't it? She's FBI, Luca. FBI, and you've been parading her around like she's your girlfriend, introducing her to family, taking her to gallery openings. Do you have any idea how that makes us look? How weak that makes you look? Who I spend time with is my business. Not when it puts all of us at risk. Not when it makes you a liability. Vincent gestured to the men around him. They agree with me. It's time for new leadership. Leadership that puts family first. That doesn't compromise our security for a pretty face. You mean leadership that deals drugs in neighborhoods where children play? Luca shot back. Leadership that traffics women. Leadership that turns us into exactly the kind of criminals the FBI should be shutting down. Profitable criminals, Vincent countered. I've been watching you, Luca. Watched you turn down opportunities because they don't fit your moral code. Watched you waste money on community centers and scholarships. Watched you go soft. This family doesn't need a social worker. It needs a boss. Then find another family, because this one isn't yours to take. The tension in the room ratcheted up. Hands moved toward weapons. Taylor's own hand went to the small gun tucked in her ankle holster, the one she carried everywhere now. Here's what's going to happen, Vincent said. You're going to step down, voluntarily. You'll keep the restaurants, live in your fancy penthouse, collect your art. But the business, the real business, comes to me, and your FBI girlfriend goes away. Permanently. We can't have loose ends. Over my dead body, Luca said. That can be arranged. The warehouse exploded into chaos. Vincent's men drew weapons. Luca's did the same, and Taylor found herself in the middle of a Mexican standoff that could turn into a massacre at any second. Stop. Taylor's voice cut through the tension. She stepped forward, positioning herself between Luca and Vincent. Everyone just stop. Taylor, get back, Luca ordered. No. She pulled out her badge, holding it high. I'm Special Agent Taylor Hayes, FBI, and all of you are about to make the worst mistake of your lives. The room went dead silent. That's right, Taylor continued, her voice steady despite her hammering heart. I am FBI, and for the past 2 months I've been investigating this organization. But here's what you don't know, Vincent. I'm not the only one. This warehouse is surrounded. My team has been listening to every word, and the moment anyone fires a shot, they're coming in. It was a complete bluff. Her backup was miles away, probably, wondering where she was, but Vincent didn't know that. You're lying, he said, but there was uncertainty in his voice. Am I? Check your phone. See if you can get a signal. We're jamming all communications in a 3-block radius. Another lie. But it worked. Several of Vincent's men pulled out phones, faces going pale when they saw no signal. What they didn't know was that this part of the waterfront had terrible service on a good day. Here's what's going to happen, Taylor said, channeling every ounce of authority she'd ever possessed. Everyone is going to put their weapons down, nice and slow. Then you're going to walk out of here calmly. And Vincent, you're going to come with me. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder and RICO violations. You have no proof. I have your own words, recorded from the wire I've been wearing. I have testimony from Agent Bellucci here, who's been working with us for the past month to clean up this organization. Luca's eyes widened, but he was smart enough not to contradict her. That's right, Taylor continued. Luca Bellucci has been cooperating with the FBI, giving us information, setting up major players for arrest. And you, Vincent, just confessed to everything we needed to bring you down. It was the performance of her life, and somehow, impossibly, it worked. Vincent's allies, faced with the prospect of FBI agents bursting in at any moment, lowered their weapons. Slowly, reluctantly, they began to back toward the exits. Vincent stood alone, his face twisted with rage and defeat. You think you've won? He spat at Luca. You think she's really on your side? She's FBI. She'll turn on you the moment it suits her. Maybe, Luca said, but at least she's honest about who she is, which is more than I can say for family. Taylor pulled out handcuffs, arrested Vincent on the spot, and as she did, she pulled out her phone with her other hand and sent a single text to Chen. Officer needs assistance with her location. The backup would be there in minutes. And when they arrived, they'd find Vincent Caruso in custody and a situation that was mostly under control. What happened after that would be up to Taylor and Luca to figure out. The aftermath of the warehouse confrontation happened fast. Chen and a full tactical team arrived within 10 minutes. They found Taylor with Vincent in handcuffs, Luca standing calmly nearby, and the rest of the men gone, fled into the night before law enforcement arrived. Chen pulled Taylor aside immediately. What the hell happened here? Vincent Caruso planned to assassinate Luca Bellucci and take over the organization, Taylor said. I intervened, made the arrest. Bellucci cooperated fully. Cooperated fully? Chen repeated skeptically. Hayes, this scene is a mess. There are shell casings everywhere, signs of a standoff, and you're telling me Bellucci just happened to cooperate? I'm telling you that Luca Bellucci is willing to work with us, Taylor said firmly. He wants to go legitimate. He's prepared to give testimony against Vincent and others in the organization who are engaged in violent crimes, in exchange for immunity and assistance in restructuring his legitimate businesses. That's not your call to make. Then make it yours. Or let me speak to the U.S. Attorney, because I'm telling you, Chen, this is the biggest break we've ever had, and if we play it right, we can take down the real criminals while helping someone who wants out. Chen studied her for a long moment, then he sighed. You're compromised. You know that, right? You can't be objective about this case anymore. Maybe not, but I'm right, and you know it. 3 hours later, Taylor and Luca sat in separate interrogation rooms at FBI headquarters. Taylor gave her statement first, detailing everything that had happened in the warehouse. She was honest about her relationship with Luca, honest about his offer to cooperate, honest about the complexity of the situation. And to her surprise, Chen listened. "The U.S. attorney is willing to meet with Bellucci," he said finally. "But Hayes, you're off this case. Effective immediately. You're too involved. Your testimony would be worthless in court because of your relationship with the target." "I understand." "Do you? Because I don't think you do. You threw away your career for this guy. For a mobster. Was it worth it?" Taylor thought about Luca's hands gentle on her face, about dancing in his office, about the community center in Brooklyn and the way he looked at her like she was the most precious thing in his world. "Yes," she said, "it was worth it." She was suspended pending a full investigation into her conduct. It would likely end in termination, but she'd known that was coming. What mattered now was what happened to Luca. The U.S. Attorney's Office negotiated for 2 weeks. In the end, they cut a deal. Luca would provide testimony against Vincent and 6 other associates engaged in drug trafficking and violent crimes. In exchange, he received immunity from prosecution for his own past activities, with the understanding that he would immediately begin divesting from all illegal operations. It wasn't everything, but it was enough. Taylor met him outside the federal building on the day the deal was signed. He looked tired but relieved. Free, maybe, for the first time in his life. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now I figure out how to run legitimate businesses without my father's shadow hanging over me. Now I prove to you and everyone else that I can be more than what I was born into." "And us?" Luca took her hand. "Now we see if what we built in the shadows can survive in the light." They walked through the city together, 2 people who'd found each other across impossible divides, who'd chosen love over duty, truth over lies, and each other over everything else. It wasn't a fairy tale. There were still investigations, still whispers, still complications that came from their past lives. But it was real. It was theirs. And that was enough. Later, much later, they would laugh about how they met, about the elaborate lies and the careful dance and the moment everything changed. But in that moment, walking hand in hand through the city they both loved, they didn't need to talk about the past. They had the future to think about now, and the future looked bright. Luca told her about growing up in 2 worlds. The legitimate face his family showed the public, and the darker reality behind it. He didn't hide what he was, didn't pretend his hands were clean. But he showed her the complexity, the impossible choices, the weight of protecting people who depended on him. "My father was murdered when I was 22, he said one night as they walked along the Brooklyn Bridge under a canopy of stars. "Shot in front of our home while my mother and sister watched. The police did nothing. They said it was gang violence, closed the case in 3 days. But I knew who ordered it. A rival family who wanted our territory." Camille listened, her hand warm in his. "I had a choice," Luca continued. "I could go to the authorities, trust the same system that had just failed us. Or I could take care of it myself, protect what was mine, keep my family safe in the only way that seemed to work in our world. What did you do?" "I did what I had to do." He looked at her, his eyes haunted. "And I've carried that weight every day since. But my mother is alive. My sister finished college, became a doctor. The people in our neighborhood can walk the streets at night without fear. That has to count for something." "It does," Camille said softly, "but it doesn't erase the other things." "No," Luca agreed, "and it doesn't. And I'm not asking you to absolve me. I just want you to understand that the world isn't as simple as good guys and bad guys. Sometimes we're all just doing the best we can with impossible situations." Camille thought about her own life, the parents she'd lost in a car accident when she was 16, the foster homes, the determination to make something of herself, to fight for justice in a world that had shown her none. She joined the FBI because she wanted to protect people, to make a difference. But what if making a difference looked different than she'd always believed? "Tell me about her," Luca said one evening as they sat in his penthouse apartment, overlooking Central Park. "The real you, not the agent, not Camille Rousseau, the woman you were before all the training and covers." So she told him about growing up in Detroit, about losing her parents, about the determination that had driven her to excel in school, to get scholarships, to build a life from nothing, about joining the FBI because she wanted to protect people the way no one had protected her family. "Taylor," she said quietly, "my real name is Taylor. Taylor Hayes." Luca smiled, testing the name on his tongue. "Taylor, It suits you better than Camille. Don't, she said, don't use it. If someone overhears, I would never endanger you, Luca said fiercely. Never. You have to know that. And somehow, impossibly, she did know it. But knowing it didn't make the situation any less complicated. Agent Chen was getting suspicious. Her reports were detailed but lacking substance. She'd been undercover for 6 weeks and hadn't delivered anything that could lead to an arrest. We need to move on this, he said during a meeting at the FBI field office. Either Bellucci trusts you enough to involve you in something concrete, or he doesn't. If he doesn't, we need to pull you and try a different approach. He's close, Camille Taylor lied. He's talking about bringing me into a major deal. Art smuggling from Italy. If I can get evidence of that. How long? 2 weeks, maybe 3. Chen studied her with eyes that had seen too many agents cross lines they shouldn't cross. You're getting too close to him. I'm doing my job. Your job is to take him down, not sleep with him. I haven't. But you want to, Chen said flatly. I can see it on your face every time you come back from one of these meetings. You're falling for him, Hayes, and that's going to get you killed. He was right. She knew he was right, but that didn't stop her from meeting Luca that night at a private art gallery in Soho. You're troubled, Luca said, the moment she walked through the door. What happened? My people are getting impatient. They want results. Then give them some. Arrest one of my associates for something minor. I'll make sure there's someone who deserves it, and I'll have their lawyer get them out in 48 hours. It'll buy you time. You'd sacrifice one of your own people? To keep you safe? To keep you on this case instead of them sending someone else who might actually hurt you? Luca pulled her close. Yes, without hesitation. They were standing in front of a painting, a Caravaggio actually, not a sketch but a real painting, small but unmistakably authentic. Is this, Taylor breathed. The Calling of St. Matthew, Luca said, from a private collection in Milan. It's on loan for this exhibition. I wanted you to see it. The painting was stunning. Caravaggio's signature use of light and shadow, the dramatic moment of Christ calling Matthew from his tax collecting. It was worth millions. Tens of millions. It's beautiful, Taylor whispered. Look at Matthew's face, Luca said, his voice low near her ear. That moment of recognition, of knowing his life is about to change completely, of having to choose between the safe, known world and something dangerous and unknown and infinitely more real. Taylor looked at the painting, at Matthew's expression of shock and wonder and fear, and felt tears sting her eyes. Which did he choose? She asked, though she knew the answer. He followed, Luca said, knowing it would cost him everything. Knowing it might get him killed? He followed because some things are worth the risk. Luca turned her to face him, his hands gentle on her shoulders. I'm in love with you, he said. I know I shouldn't be. I know it's complicated and dangerous and probably the worst decision either of us could make. But I'm in love with you, Taylor Hayes, and I need you to know that before you make your choice. Taylor's heart shattered and soared at the same time. What choice? Whether to finish your mission and destroy me or to walk away from everything you've built and see where this goes. I won't ask you to choose me. I won't ask you to betray your principles. But I need you to know what's at stake. What we could have if we're brave enough to reach for it. They'll arrest you eventually, Taylor said, tears flowing freely now. With me or without me, the FBI will build a case. They'll send you to prison. Then I'll have whatever time we have until then. A month, a year, however long it takes. But I'll have it with you, if you'll let me. Luca, I love you, he said again, and kissed her like it was the last time. But it wasn't the last time. It was the first real time. The first time she kissed him back as herself, as Taylor, without the weight of her cover identity between them. They made love that night in his penthouse, surrounded by art and city lights and the impossible beauty of something that should never have existed. Luca touched her like she was precious, like she was worth every risk. And for the first time in years, Taylor let herself be seen completely. No matter what happens, Luca whispered against her skin, you'll always be safe. I'll make sure of it. Even if it means keeping you safe from me. Taylor held him tighter, knowing that safety was an illusion, that loving him was the most dangerous thing she'd ever done. But she loved him anyway. The next morning, Taylor woke to find Luca already dressed, standing by the window with a coffee in hand and a darkness in his eyes she'd never seen before. What's wrong? She asked. I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you weeks ago. Taylor sat up, pulling the sheet around herself. What? Your people, the FBI. They're not just investigating my family. They're being fed information by someone inside my organization. Someone who's been working with them for over a year. Taylor's blood ran cold. Who? I don't know yet. But whoever it is has access to sensitive information. They know about shipments, meetings, financial transactions. They're the reason the FBI has gotten so close. Luca, if there's an informant, it gets worse, he said, turning to face her. 3 days ago, someone tried to kill my mother. A drive-by shooting outside the restaurant. She's fine. She wasn't there, thank God. But the message was clear. Someone wants to start a war. And I think they're using your investigation to do it. Taylor's mind raced. What do you mean? Think about it. The FBI applies pressure. My family responds. Tensions escalate. And in the chaos, someone makes a move to take over our territory. It's the perfect cover. You think someone's manipulating the investigation? I think someone saw an opportunity and seized it. And now you and I are caught in the middle. Taylor threw off the covers, started gathering her clothes. I need to talk to my people. If someone's feeding them false information. Taylor, wait. Luca caught her arm. If you go to them now, they'll know you've been compromised. They'll pull you from the case, and whoever's setting this up will just find another way. Then what do? We find the informant, together. You use your access to FBI intelligence, I use my network. We figure out who's playing both sides, and we stop them before this turns into a bloodbath. It was insane. It was collaboration with a criminal. It was everything she'd been trained never to do. It was also the right thing to do. One condition, Taylor said. We do this my way, no killing. No matter who the informant is, we bring them in legally. We build a case the right way. Even if they tried to kill my mother? Especially then, because I need you to prove to me that you're different, that you can choose justice over revenge. Luca studied her for a long moment, then he nodded. Okay, we do it your way. They worked together for the next 2 weeks, a strange partnership of FBI agent and mob boss. Taylor fed Luca information about the Bureau's investigation, while carefully misdirecting Chen and her other handlers. Luca gave her access to his organization's records, showing her the legitimate businesses alongside the illegal ones, trusting her with information that could destroy him, and slowly a picture emerged. The informant wasn't who either of them expected. It was Vincent Caruso, Luca's cousin and second in command. The man who'd been part of the family for 30 years. The man Luca trusted with his life. The betrayal cut deep. Why? Luca asked when they finally confronted Vincent in a warehouse on the waterfront. Taylor's backup team was positioned outside, ready to move in for the arrest. Why would you do this to us? To the family? Vincent looked older than his 52 years, tired and bitter. Because you were never supposed to be in charge. That should have been my father's seat, my birthright. But your father took it, and when he died, it went to you, a kid who'd rather collect paintings than do what needs to be done. So you sold us out, tried to have my mother killed? I didn't try to have Rosa killed. That was the Russians. I gave them information, yes. Made deals to split the territory once you were gone. But I never wanted her hurt. Never wanted any of the family hurt. I just wanted what should have been mine. Taylor stepped forward, her badge visible. Vincent Caruso, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, racketeering, and violation of the RICO Act. Vincent laughed bitterly. You're arresting me with her help? With an FBI agent's help? Luca, you really are a fool. No, Luca said quietly. I'm a man who learned the difference between loyalty and honor, between the family you're born into and the family you choose, and I choose her. The arrest went smoothly. Taylor's team took Vincent into custody, and the case against him was airtight. The FBI finally had their informant, their proof of Bellucci family crimes, but they also had a bigger problem. Hayes, in my office, now. Agent Chen's face was thunderous. Taylor had known this was coming. You've been sleeping with the target, Chen said flatly, closing the door behind them. Don't deny it. We've had surveillance on you for the past week. Taylor met his gaze steadily. Yes. Jesus Christ, Hayes. Do you have any idea what you've done? You've compromised the entire investigation. Every piece of evidence you've gathered is now inadmissible. Defense attorneys will have a field day claiming you manipulated the investigation. The case against Vincent Caruso is solid, Taylor said. It doesn't rely on my testimony alone. The financial records, the wiretaps from other sources, the testimony from his own associates, it's all there. And what about Bellucci? We had you in there to bring down the whole organization, not just one disgruntled cousin. Luca Bellucci helped us take down a traitor in his organization. He cooperated fully. That's worth something. It's worth exactly nothing if you're romantically involved with him. You're off the case, effective immediately, and you're looking at disciplinary action, possibly termination. Taylor had known this was coming, had known it from the moment she first kissed Luca in that private dining room, but knowing didn't make it easier. I understand, she said. Do you? Because I don't think you do. You threw away your career, Hayes? For what? For a mobster who's going to be under investigation for the rest of his life? Who'll probably end up in prison eventually anyway. For the first time in my life, I chose something for me, Taylor said quietly. Not for duty, not for justice, for me. And I don't regret it. Chen shook his head. Get out of my office. You'll have a hearing next week. Taylor walked out of the FBI building in Lower Manhattan and found Luca waiting across the street, leaning against his car. He looked up as she approached, and something in her expression must have told him everything. They fired you, he said. Not yet. But they will. I'm sorry. I'm not. Taylor took his hand. I meant what I said. I don't regret it. What will you do now? I don't know. Figure it out as I go, I guess. She looked up at him. The question is, what will we do now? Luca pulled her close, right there on the street, not caring who saw. Now we see if we can build something real, something that's just ours. No covers, no lies, just you and me. That's going to be complicated, Taylor said. You're still going to be under investigation. There will always be agents watching you. Then we'll be very careful, very honest, and very patient. He kissed her forehead. I told you once that the things we cherish most are always under threat, that the only way to keep them safe is to keep them close. I meant that. Luca, I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll go legitimate, really legitimate. No more gray areas, no more protecting the neighborhood through illegal means. Build something clean, something that can't be taken away. That's asking me to change everything about my life. No, Taylor said. I'm asking you to become the man I know you want to be, the man who collects art because he loves beauty, not because he needs to launder money, the man who runs restaurants because he loves feeding people, not because he needs a front, the man who can build a life with me that doesn't end in handcuffs or bullets. Luca was quiet for a long time. Then he nodded slowly. It won't be easy. There are obligations. People who depend on me. It'll take time. I have time, Taylor said. For the first time in my life, I have all the time in the world. They drove to Vitale's, where Rosa was waiting with worry in her eyes and warmth in her smile. She hugged Taylor like a daughter, like she'd known all along how this would end. So, Rosa said, setting a plate of pasta in front of each of them, the FBI agent and my son, this is quite a story. Mama, Luca started. Shh, I'm not finished. Rosa sat down, her eyes sharp and knowing. The question is, what kind of story will it be? A tragedy or something else? Something else, Taylor said firmly, if we have anything to say about it. Good, Rosa said. Then you'll need this. She slid a small box across the table to Luca. Your grandmother's ring. I've been saving it for when you found the right woman. I think I've been waiting for her. Luca opened the box. Inside was a ring with a deep red ruby surrounded by diamonds. It was beautiful, old world, perfect. Mama, it's too soon. It's not a proposal, Rosa interrupted. Not yet. It's a promise. A reminder that some things are worth fighting for, worth waiting for, worth all the risk. Taylor looked at the ring, at Rosa's knowing smile, at Luca's eyes full of love and hope and determination, and for the first time since this whole complicated mess began, she felt something close to peace. 3 months later, Taylor sat in a hearing room facing a panel of FBI officials. The outcome was predetermined. She'd violated protocols, compromised an investigation, engaged in a relationship with a target. The evidence was clear. Special Agent Hayes, the panel leader said, do you have anything to say in your defense? No, sir, Taylor said. I made my choices with full knowledge of the consequences. I don't expect leniency. Very well. This panel finds sufficient evidence of professional misconduct. You are hereby terminated from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, effective immediately. Taylor nodded, stood, and walked out of the building for the last time. Luca was waiting outside, just like she knew he would be. How are you feeling? He asked. Free, Taylor said, and was surprised to find she meant it. Over the next year, Taylor and Luca built a life together. She found work as a private investigator, using her skills to help people without the constraints of federal bureaucracy. Luca began the slow, difficult process of extricating himself from the illegal aspects of his business. It meant making enemies. It meant losing power. But it also meant building something real. They moved in together, got engaged, planned a future that once would have seemed impossible. Do you ever regret it? Luca asked one night as they sat on their balcony overlooking the city. Giving up your career for this? For me? Never, Taylor said. I gave up being Agent Hayes, but I found Taylor again. The real me. That's worth more than any badge. Even when things are hard, when the FBI is still investigating me, when people whisper that you're a traitor, when money is tight because I'm not running the family business the way I used to? Especially then, Taylor said, because we chose this, we chose each other, and that makes it worth fighting for. Luca kissed her deep and slow, like he had all the time in the world, like they both did. I love you, Taylor Hayes, he said, former FBI agent, current pain in my ass, future wife. I love you too, Luca Bellucci, reformed mobster, art collector, man who makes the best carbonara I've ever had. They sat together as the city lights flickered on below them, two people who'd found each other across impossible divides, who'd chosen love over duty, truth over lies, and each other over everything else. It wasn't a fairy tale. There were still investigations, still whispers, still complications that came from their past lives, but it was real. It was theirs. And that was enough. You know what the best part is? Taylor said, leaning into his warmth. What's that? I don't have to lie anymore. About who I am, about what I feel, about any of it. With you, I'm just me. Just Taylor, Luca agreed. The woman who walked into my restaurant to destroy me and ended up saving me instead. Saving you? I got you investigated by the FBI. And in the process, you gave me a reason to become someone worth saving, someone who could build a life based on something other than fear and power, someone who could love and be loved without all the walls and defenses. That's saving, Taylor. That's exactly what it is. She turned to look at him, this beautiful, complicated man who'd seen through every lie she told and loved her anyway. One day at a time, she said, echoing his words from that first night. One day at a time, Luca agreed, pulling her close. For the rest of our lives. And in the warm darkness of a New York night, with the city spread out below them like a promise, Taylor Hayes and Luca Bellucci held each other tight and believed in the impossible thing they'd built. A love born from lies, a truth discovered in deception, a future forged from the ashes of everything they'd thought they wanted. Some stories don't have neat endings. Some loves don't fit into the boxes society builds. But sometimes the best stories are the ones that refuse to follow the rules, the ones that insist on their own truth despite everything. This was one of those stories, and it was just beginning. If you love stories about impossible love and dangerous choices, subscribe and hit the notification bell. Comment below. Would you risk everything for the right person? And stay tuned, because tomorrow brings another tale of power, passion, and the thin line between right and wrong.